we overthink everything. We learn by doing. I sat for 4 years trying to figure this out, whether it's the 203K or wholesaling or flipping or buying holes or multifamily syndications or whatever it is, right? You already know what you need to do. Like, thinking is just making it a lot more miserable for you and taking you a lot longer.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Rare Mind Podcast. Today I've got Porcaro. He talks about the 203K way. Basically what he does is that he leverages one of the loans to help you get into a property that needs renovation to help you build equity, so you're actually essentially getting paid to buy a home. So Matt, how you doing today? Let's talk
What's up,
about
man?
this.
Doing great. It's a great way to put. It's you basically buying a home and getting paid to live there, which is it's a cool way of putting it. But yeah, no, it's been a cool journey. But I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, man. And so let me I guess let's backtrack a little bit. What were you doing before you got into real estate?
So I went to school for engineering actually, and what's funny is I've always been the guy that hasn't really been good at anything. It takes me a lot longer to find things out, especially like my engineering degree and everything like that. So
Uh,
yeah, I went to school. I went to school for engineering just solely because my guidance counselor said it could be it's like the highest paying jobs out of 4 year school, because I knew I wasn't smart enough to be like a doctor or a lawyer or anything. And I also knew I wanted to make money because I grew up in a household where money was very tight, and I saw that money was the root of all stress, and it seemed like all like bad things happened when my parents didn't have money or were short on money and everything like that. So from a young age, I put money on a pedestal, good, bad, or indifferent. That's just kind of how it was. So got into the workforce, went to school, barely got by in 4 years, like
mhm.
made it to graduation by the skin of my teeth,
Yeah.
and got into the engineering world, worked in New York City. Again, just wasn't probably a great employee by any means, but
Uh,
started doing the 9 to 5 thing, and learned that very quickly into that I didn't really want to do that either. My parents thought that a 9 to 5, they had their own business. So they
yeah.
thought that like the 9 to 5 in the W-2 world was like the way people got rich, like climb the corporate ladder and own a company one day. That
Yeah.
surely wasn't the case.
Uh,
And that's eventually what led me into real estate. But, I was just a 9 to 5 W-2 guy, working in New York City, doing the grind, commuting 3 hours a day for a better part of 15 years.
that's amazing. Yeah. And so what kind of hurdles did you come across when you were first getting started, and how did you overcome them?
Yeah. So it's like a lot of people, right? The first thing was that I knew there had to be a better way, I think. So when I first got into the mix, again, it all started with me realizing that, how do people get wealthy, or how to like trading my time for money just didn't seem to make sense for me, right? And
Hmm.
I read Rich Dad Poor Dad like many people do, and for a young kid like me that grew up in a world where investing was never talked about and never a thing that was even explored or discussed or whatever,
Hmm.
when you start to realize like, hey, you can have your money work for you, that's the dream, right? Like you
Yeah.
want to get better at, you don't want to trade your time for money, because I didn't even have kids yet, but I already realized like if I'm just commuting like 3 hours a day, I was out of the house 12 hours a day. I'm like, this isn't any way to live. This isn't fun.
Yeah.
so, so anyway, the reason I share that is because, getting into it, I knew the way, but I didn't know how to get there. And I started trying a lot of different avenues, like how am I going to build wealth for myself? And I, got interested in the stock market and kind of starting my own side businesses and everything like that. And like I
Hmm.
told you before, like I'm not smart, and I fail at a lot of things for a long time before I figure it out. So,
Hmm.
I tried and failed at all those things and really didn't quite crack it. So real estate to me was kind of no different. I almost felt like real estate was impossible. Being here in New York, right?
Yeah.
Like many parts of the country these days, like at the time, even 10 years ago when I first started, like it was still insanely expensive. I had what you would say is probably a decent job. I did okay, but there was no way I was going to be able to buy a house, let alone multiple houses, right? So like
Yeah.
in Rich Dad Poor Dad, when Robert Kiyosaki talks about buy real estate. Real estate's created by millionaires. There's all the tax benefits and passive income and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, that's great, Robert, but that's not for New Yorkers. We can't buy one house, let alone multiple. Like we barely can afford one. So I kind of wrote off the idea that I could never buy a house, but the seed was always planted. And I tell people the way the 203K way came about, and like this whole way that I call it the 203K way, because that was the way that I broke into real estate in such a tough market with very little money and like no experience really, is I didn't take no for an answer, in the sense that like all roads kept leading to real estate. All roads kept suggesting that real estate is the end game and the be end all be all. So what ended up happening was I just was doing a ton of research, and for years was just looking into it and asking a lot of people, and eventually found out about the FHA 203K loan. And that was the roadblocks were that I didn't have a lot of money. Everything was really expensive, even here in New York. Even the houses that were knockdowns are still going for $400,000 or $500,000, right? And I didn't have a load of money. I didn't have any experience, but like, how the heck do I still crack this? I still wanted to do it. What's cool about the 203K loan is it basically solved all those problems for me, right? It's a very little known government program. It's an FHA mortgage, so it's a version of the FHA program, which is the Federal Home Buying Administration, and they have this program that for like similar to the FHA loan, allows you to buy a property for only 3.5% of the total purchase price, right? It also allows you to buy up to 4-unit properties. So it allows you to buy multi-unit properties. So if you're interested in investing, the idea here was like, I realized that, okay, well, I can buy a property, only put 3.5% down, and I can live in one unit and have the tenants pay my mortgage. Because even if I did find something and did manage to get into the property, even on my salary, where I have like with the taxes here, property taxes, like I would need help. So the tenants were able to give me that help. The 203K version, what's amazing about it is not only do they give you all the money to buy the house, but the 203K version gives you all the money to renovate the house. So you can buy fixer-uppers, you could buy foreclosures, as-is property, short sales, stuff that typically only cash investors could buy. You're able to buy, and they give you all the money you need to renovate it and build equity into it. So basically what you do is you flip the script on the bank and you say, hey, bank, I'm going to buy this house and you're going to help me do it. And I'm also going to reap all the benefits because you're going to give me all the money to make it nice and increase the rents on the property for the other units and increase the value in the property and ultimately give me a fighting chance in a market where I couldn't afford anything else. So it gave me the low down payment, which was attainable for me. It was only $9,500 for me on my first one. I bought a house for $270,000. The bank gave me the $80,000 I needed to renovate it. So my total loan on the property was $350,000. When I was done with the renovation 8 months later, I built $150,000 of equity off of that $9,500. Suffice to say also, I wasn't paying the mortgage on it, the tenants were. So coming out of pocket, $9,500 gave me a property that was paying for itself and also built me $150,000 of equity. And that was the springboard that I needed. It was the proof of concept. It was the capital injection that I needed that enabled me to go and start flipping houses and get more into real estate a lot more seriously.
Wow, that's amazing. So you got in for $9,500 and then you were able to create $150,000 worth of equity. And how I guess how fast was that able to be done? And how'd you do the renovations? Like, did you know about this before, or kind of who did you have guidance from to get the renovations done?
So
correctly?
So that's a really good question, man. So here's the crazy thing about it, right? The crazy thing about it is there was no guidance. There was no information about it. Like, nobody talks about this thing. There's a multitude of different reasons why, mostly because like lenders and agents don't really have a benefit to really giving it to anybody, because although there's a ton of benefit, obviously, to me as the buyer, like $9,500, buy a duplex and build $150,000 of equity. Heck yeah. For them, there's more steps, obviously. Like, they're giving you all the money to buy a house and all the money to renovate it. So of course they want to make sure that you're using the right contractors and everything like that. So that's the reason why it doesn't get really pitched much, because it's extra steps for the lenders or the agents and no extra money for them, right? Like no more commission for them or anything like that. So it's not really, they're going to be the only ones that are going to know about it, because they're the ones that are telling the conventional buyers, your retail home buyers, because it's a retail program, right? The caveat to the program is it's an FHA loan. So it's an owner occupant loan. So it's for people that are going to buy a house and live in it. That's why they give you the great terms, right? It's not like an investor loan. People will think like, can I use this and flip and flip? No, I mean, that's the whole point, but it gives you a huge starting point, right? I always tell people, like, imagine your boss or imagine you had a job offer, right? And you went to get a job and they're like, hey, we're going to give you $100,000 bonus the first year. You're like, hell yeah. That's like saying, like, not using it is like saying, like, well, I'm not guaranteed another $100,000 bonus in year 2, so I'm not even going to take the job, right? It's like, you might as well use it once to just because it's available to everybody. It's an FHA, it's federal, everyone can use it. So to answer your question, like, I didn't have any really leadership or guidance on it. There wasn't a lot of information about it. But like I said to you before, the thing about it was this was my only option. And a little life lesson for me was, like, I spent 4 years trying to break into real estate, trying to learn things and take courses and read books and listen to podcasts and all that stuff, always looking for like that secret play or tip or trick that was going to get me into the game. What I realized was that I needed to learn by doing. And what was the blessing in disguise with the fact that it was a nightmare, don't get me wrong, like, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. Not a nightmare in the sense that, like, you know, I would go through that nightmare any day. It was a lot to learn, and it was very high stress, and it was hard to figure it out because I didn't have anyone to really lead me through. But because of that, it forced me to stay on track and be focused, right? It forced me to learn as I went because I didn't have any other option, right? The life lesson is, like, when people, sometimes you have to back yourself up into a wall and have no other options, right? The Tony Robbins quote, you got to burn the boats. That's really what I did. I kind of burned the boat. I was like, this is the only way it's going to happen. Like, the down payment, that $9,500, like, honestly was all the money I really truly had. I maybe had a couple more grand in the bank. Like, I had that. I had, a dream and a hope and, like, some understanding of real estate from all the courses and things that I, like, looked at. So I went into it kind of blind, but I'm an engineer by trade, and I've always been inquisitive, and I've always had the idea that if someone can do it, I can do it. I've always thought, now I might not do it as good as them, I might not be as fast as them, but there's no way that, like, this thing out there exists and it's not doable, right? So I just went after it, and I learned as I went. How do you manage everything? The thing that I had in my background was, like I said, my background's in construction, and I grew up in the business, and I worked in construction in New York City. So I had that, but to mind you, like, I didn't understand anything else about real estate, numbers, like, that stuff was all foreign to me. Negotiation, like, all that's, like, I'm really bad at all that stuff. So the construction part, I kind of knew, like, what needed to happen. I grew up in the business. We had family, friends, everything like that we knew we could probably find good contractors. But what's really cool about the loan is that it's built in a way to protect you, right? Like, so when you get this loan, they want to make sure that you're using a licensed and insured contractor, as you should anyway. But people still try to get around that. Like, this is not the place to do it, right? You use a licensed and insured contractor, have a really clear scope of work. It requires all this, right? So it's a little extra paperwork on the front end, but honestly, as someone that had worked in large scale construction, doing really big design build projects all across New York City for 15 years, the way that the 203K tells you to structure it and requires it to be structured is the way all professional construction is structured. Like, it has to be, you have to only work with licensed and insured people. You have to make sure that they have experience. You have to make sure that there's a clear scope of work of what's going to be done to the property. A lot of people that have nightmares with contractors are because they're usually missing one of or a combination of those things. So the cool thing about it is that if you follow it and do it the way it's supposed to be done, these are there to protect you and kind of push you through, which is ultimately what it did for me.
Amazing. Wow. Okay, cool. So how'd you find that deal? Was that a non-market deal you found, or did you get introduced to wholesalers or kind of how'd you find that deal?
Yeah, great question. So what's cool about the 203K loan is, again, like you can use it to buy any property in any condition. It could be in decent condition. It could be literally like a foundation in the ground. As long as there's some existing residential structure there and you have the budget to, or you're pre-approved for the amount that you need to fix it, like it could be whatever, right? So it acts just as cash.
Yeah.
So what I did was I went out there and just kind of like did it the old fashioned way. I just placed a ton of offers, and I didn't work with wholesalers or anything like that. There was enough. I would say like the 203K is really good. Again, this is for retail buyers, and you're putting so little down, right?
Yeah.
And you're getting such a good interest rate compared to if you use like a DSCR loan or a long-term loan or something like that. Your deals pencil out a lot better than like a wholesaler or a flipper would be looking for. So
Yeah.
to this day, there's still stuff on the MLS, stuff that's on market. Because at the end of the day, right, the MLS is the lowest hanging fruit, right? These are sellers that made the conscious decision to go to a real estate agent, tell them that they are interested and want to sell, sign a contract, get their pictures put up, and go and list the property, right?
Yeah.
What I found with the 203K and loans like this is that we're able to play in what I call the Goldilocks zone, right? So there's like this part of the market in the MLS that, is not for a regular Harry and Sally home buyer that are looking to just get it something move-in ready and feel all warm and fuzzy and have their dog in the backyard. And then they're not, but then like there's these fixer-uppers where like they're priced too high for a flipper or a wholesaler to buy, because they're just like, again, flippers and wholesalers are typically want to find off market because that's really where the least amount of competition is, and that's where they can make their margins. So you have this kind of like purgatory or this Goldilocks zone that I call it, which is where these are properties that are like, they're not like a regular person's not going to buy them because they're not in good enough shape. But they're maybe not like distressed enough where a wholesaler or a flipper is going to buy them for a deep discount. So they're priced a little high, but they're not too high. So what I did was I just fished in like the stuff that's on market, like REOs are perfect for this, as is properties, short sales, foreclosures, handyman specials, you name it. And I just placed a ton of offers, and don't get it twisted. Like I was getting rejected. I was getting laughed at by agents. Like they still thought what I was doing was crazy. Hey kid, you're never going to get what you're looking for. Excuse me. You don't have a pre-approval high enough. Like, cause even back then, like it was still a high market. But I just knew, again, like I had no other choice. So I literally like scraped the bottom of the barrel in my market in Long Island here in Long Island, New York, and just scrapped the bottom of the bucket until I finally started getting some feedback. But yeah, I placed probably a good 10 or 20 offers before I found this one.
Wow. Okay. Amazing. And so the FHA 203K loan, this is a one-time loan, or can you do this multiple times?
Yeah, so like I said before, kind of like the analogy of like if you get a job offer and they offer you a $100,000 bonus on the front end, do you not take the job offer because you don't know if you're guaranteed that $100,000 bonus on the next year, right? To answer your question, the requirement is that you have to occupy the property, right? So what happens is like people first ask, like, can I just keep repeating this over and over? The reality is yes, as long as you are within the guidelines of you are moving out into the next property. If you want to keep the previous property and hold it, you have to, it's an income loan, right? It's a doc loan. So it's based like, do you have debt service covering that? Are you renting it out? Do you have proof of that, right? Just like a bank, when they qualify you, they want to make sure that, all these properties that you have are being paid off. These are mortgages under your name. What I've found and what happened with me is that as much I love the 203K more than anyone else on the planet, right? But the idea is that it is not the fastest and most like the best loan out there. What it enabled me to do was when I got this, I went from being a nobody in the real estate game in the sense of like, I don't have any experience. I don't have any money. I've never done it, and like no capital, no cash flow, whatever, to someone now that has cash flow coming in, has 6 figures of equity that I can tap into, but most importantly, has experience, right? I just got done buying and renovating a fixer-upper house that's a multi-unit property. I'm acting as a landlord. I have all this stuff now that I'm able to go market, now it's easier for me to raise private capital. It's easier for me to get attention from hard money lenders and private lenders, right? It's easier for me to kind of justify myself when I'm looking at stuff for, for like looking for deals. And it's like, I'm established now. I always say like there's the difference between like the gap between someone that has never done a deal and people that have done one is like massive. It's like a cliff. Right. But then once you're at the top of that cliff, it kind of evens out, because once you've done one, you know what needs to be done and you can repeat the process. But that gap between 0 to 1 is really, really big. So when you get in and I call it like the club, once you get into the club, you start to realize that more doors are going to open for you. I just finished my own house. I'm sitting in my home office right now. We just finished a massive renovation on our own house. We did this a similar way. We used the Fannie Mae homestyle loan, which is the exact same thing. There's a couple different programs that act very similarly. Yeah. The 203K is like the most known one, but believe it or not, like the homestyle is very popular as well. And I used it for my own house here. And, we bought this house. This is my forever home, but we bought an off market. It was a fixer upper. We put 800 square feet into it. All this stuff, but we used the bank's money to do it. Now we put $60,000 down on this. We only needed to put down 30. We put 60 because we wanted to, and we wanted our payment to be at a certain amount. We put down is $60,000 down, but we bought it for $615. We put 300 into it using the bank's money, and now we're looking at 1.4, 1.5 just on our own house, because we used the bank's money to do it. And now for me, this is a couple years later, right? I did my first one, I stopped. I did another one that I partnered with my cousin on, and then I went, and again, I was doing more of the flipping thing. And then this is my forever home, which I did again. But it's so cool when people start to have the shift change of like, your primary residence does not have to be a canvas that you paint on with money. It can actually pay you, and it could be one of your biggest nest eggs of net worth. You just have to do it right. And this loan and these programs, just like the Fannie Mae, the homestyle, all renovation lending is a great way and the purest form of leverage to get a lot of equity really quickly.
Gotcha. Amazing. So could you give us a description of the homestyle loan, what the difference is between an FHA in terms of like requirements of,
it's they're very nitpicky and they're very onesie twosie. What I would say is this, right? At the end of the day, you want to work with a lender that knows what they're doing on these. Like renovation, it's like if you have a heart problem, do you go to a heart surgeon or do you go to your GP, your general doctor? If you have a heart problem, who are you going to go to? You're going to go to the heart surgeon, right? What happens is with these loans sometimes is people go to their regular loan officer for heart surgery, and the heart surgery being the 203K or the renovation loan, right? The reality is there's lenders out there that specialize in these, right? I'm partnered with a bank now that they specialize in these. They do them nationally. If you're listening and you're interested in this, the 203kway.com/lender. It's my shameless plug. I've worked with tons of lenders over the years, and a lot of them say that they know how to do these, but don't know how to do them. The reality is again, if you're getting heart surgery, you want the heart specialist. So with this, you want someone that specializes in these and knows them very well. To answer your question about what makes them different, at the end of the day, like it's basically like when you go into a car dealership and like you walk in and like you're a family. The family is probably going to go for the minivan, but Julian, if you go in there, you're probably going to go for if it's just you alone, you're going to walk in there and you're going to want the convertible, right? Like at the end of the day, both are a car and both get you to the same place, but the best car for you is going to depend on your situation, who you are, where you're at, the type of property, your budget, a lot of different things. So the short answer is they both act the exact same way. If you like get paperwork from a bank, sometimes it'll say at the top like FHA/homestyle/ there's a Freddie Mac version called the Home Choice. They all kind of require the same stuff. Where it gets a little like onesie twosie is like pre-approvals, like what the loan limits are in your market, what your how much down payment capital you have, stuff like that. The best way to explain it is they're always going back and forth and trying to beat each other in terms of terms and qualifications and stuff, because they are kind of competing in a sense for the same business. But at the end of the day, like a good loan officer is going to put you in the best car for you, right? In the best loan product for you. Just like a good car salesman is not going to put the family in the convertible, because that's not going to be their best interest, right? So what they're going to do is they're going to look at your financial profile. They're going to look at the deal. They're going to look at your area, what the numbers are. And they're going to say, oh, homestyle is better for this one, or 203K is better in this one. 203K has definitely come a long way in the last 6 months in terms of like, they're really trying to push some stuff. One of the cool things that they have that the Fannie Mae doesn't quite have is what you're able to do. One of the cool features about this is because when they put together this loan, they understand that this is for primary residence owners, right? Yeah. So they understand if you're doing a big renovation on a property, you're not going to have a place to live because it's going to be worked on. So what do? They allow you to wrap up to the first 12 months now. It used to be 6. Fannie Mae Homestyle is just 6. But 203K jumped it to 12. You can go up to 12 months of mortgage payments you can wrap into the loan. So basically, in my case, I did it when you can wrap 6. So I went in, paid the $9,500 and didn't have to pay a payment for 6 months, right?
Yeah.
Now with this, you can put your $15,000 down payment on your $500,000 house, get in. Now it has to be warranted. You can't be like, hey, I'm just changing the vanities and I'm asking for 12 months. It has to make sense. But a lot of people, if you're doing a good size renovation, you could easily eat 12 months very quickly. So you go in, you wrap that into the payment. Now, of course, that will raise your mortgage payment and it will raise the principal that you're at. But again, when you do things the right way and you're building equity, you're finding good deals, you have the opportunity to buy a house, not make any payments on it while it's appreciating, while you're forcing appreciation on it. And if you do the house hacking concept, you're not even really going to be fully paying the mortgage anyway when the time does come. And it's so that's so there's like little cool things with the 203K there that come up that make it, a little better than other. But that's not to say that Fannie Mae won't come in and do the same in the next couple of months.
Wow. That's super cool. I honestly haven't heard about this, so yeah, I'm really
nobody has, man. It's surprised. If I had $1 for every time people say that, but that's why I do what I do, because I thought it was, to me, because I'm not a loan officer, I'm not a real estate agent, I'm just a guy that benefited from it tremendously, and it always blew my mind. As someone really interested in real estate, it always just blew my mind why more people don't talk about it, and that's why this whole thing came about. It wasn't because I never had I was an engineer, man. I liked flipping houses. I never thought I would do this. Yeah. But the reality was I realized there were a lot more people out there like me that were being told all these things and being told you can't do things. And here's something that for a lot of people in this situation that are looking to buy a house, or their first house, or their next home, and want to make a good financial decision. They're not just looking for something move-in ready that they're going to overpay for. They want to buy right. This is the golden egg. This is the golden ticket. It just blew my mind that it's not a more household name, despite the fact that, it does take a little bit more time. It does take a little bit more effort. But like anything else, the more you do it, you realize it's really not that complicated at all. It's actually, again, the stuff that they ask from you, the extra steps, again, are a clear scope of work, contractor 1 page, it's literally 1 page resume of hey, I've been in business this long. Here are my references. Here are supply houses that I work with and have trade lines in. And here's my license number. That's your other big piece of paperwork. And then they ask you for a clear scope of work. Not just, hey, renovate the house, $100,000. Obviously, you're going to run into some issues with that. They want to see tile, 100 square foot of tile in the bathroom. They want to see kitchen, replace 20 linear feet of cabinetry, add a bathroom, stuff you should do anyway. Again, you don't have a project if you don't have a clear scope. That's it. That's what they're asking from you. So as long as you have that, again, it's not complicated at all. But for a lender that never does it, or a real estate agent that doesn't do it, they just see it and they see 2 or 3 more pieces of paperwork that are standing between them and their commission check. So they're not going to talk about it because they just see it as a little bit more of of a headache than it's worth.
Right, right, absolutely. Okay, I gotcha. So that's really cool. And so, who is perfect for this? Like, what kind of scenario? Like, if we were to paint a picture of like, okay, you have credit score over 680, or you have at least $10,000 to $20,000 or more,
Yeah.
and what kind of person would benefit this from this the most? Who could potentially profit the way you did?
Yeah.
From it.
So I would say first time home buyers or people able and willing to buy their next home that are that have an interest in real estate investing and have an interest in building wealth and have an interest in, in going that next route. People that have 2 years of consistent income. W-2 is preferred. It's just banks just like boring. That's just the way it is. However, our banks they were very flexible as long as the income is consistent, right? Understand, like it's a big, people understand these days, like not everyone's W-2 works at Ford Motor Company for 50 years. Like people bump around different places. They just want to make sure that like you're getting paid for what you do and it's a consistent number every month. It's not like 1 month I'm backpacking in Europe, the next month I'm driving Uber for 3 weeks, and they want to see consistency. So career people that, your nurses, your cops, your teachers, your accountants, your sales guys, IT people, whatever, right? So consistent income. Credit score is pretty like lenient, right? Especially on the 203K, they want you 620 or above. So again, if you're under that, like you shouldn't be thinking about investing in real estate. You should fix your credit first because you need that. And so that in terms of down payment savings, again, they require you to have 3.5% of the minimum amount, right? So in the case of this example, right, the total loan amount is going to be on the 203K is going to be the purchase price of the property plus the renovation budget. And that they include contingency on it too. So like there's a little extra 10% on the renovation cost that they'll tack on too. But for easy purposes, it's like, let's just say you see a house that's $400,000 and it needs about $100,000 worth of work. You're all in for $500,000. It's effectively that you have a $500,000 mortgage, right? That's all it means. It's all wrapped into one. Your down payment cap requirement would be 3.5% of that, which would be $17,500, right? So you want that. Obviously, reserves are good. A lot of people talk about another closing costs and everything like that. Of course, it's always good to be prepared for that. What I will tell you is one of the cool things about this loan is because you are able to build equity on this property and you're able to buy right and potentially like get loaned on the future equity of the property. So what's crazy about this, and for the people that really know real estate and understand this, they know how absolutely mind-boggling insane this is when you actually really think about it. The 203K will let you leverage 110% of the after renovated value. So whatever the value is of the property after you renovate it, they'll actually let you leverage it 10% more than what that's worth. I don't condone that in the sense of like, I believe that you should, if you're going to do all this work, you might as well get some equity out of it, right? However, for people that they're like, hey, listen, this is where I'm going to stay a long time. I just want to make it my own. The whole reason they do this is because they know that it's your primary residence, and they know that if you're probably going to do a big renovation on it, that you're probably going to stay put for a while. You're not going to keep doing this. So they do that in that aspect. But what's cool about that is you can use that equity to be able to wrap in the 12 months mortgage payments, right? Like, because that's going to touch the equity that you haven't realized yet, but it's there to keep more money in your pocket in the first year, right?
Right.
So you have that. On the next part, same thing with closing costs. You have the ability, on an FHA loans, you can get up to 6% back as a seller's concession. So what you do is you just offer on the property, you see whatever the difference is, you increase your offer that 6%, and you just ask the seller for a 6% concession back to close. We do that all the time. So when I say like the 17.5, like that's really what you want to hold. And what I tell people too is what's cool about this is if you really want to go heavy on the leverage thing, a lot of people, working a job, they have a 401k or an annuity or something like that. This isn't financial advice, but at the end of the day, what's cool about this stuff is you can take a loan out against your 401k with no penalty for your primary residence. So what's really cool is you have the ability to leverage this loan. And what's cool about it is your money stays vested. Your money doesn't, it's not like you're pulling your money out of your 401k and you're no longer earning on it. You're actually just being your own bank. It's kind of like if you've ever heard of the infinite banking concept of like lending your own money to yourself. you're lending your own money to yourself and you're paying yourself back with interest and you're still earning on your 401k. So this is a way where like you can use your down payment. And when you look at the returns on equity and returns on cash flow, I mean, you're pouring a fire on your 401k. That's something that I've done a couple times and I'm just a big fan of because it's the one really way that you can re-leverage your 401k without any penalties and capitalize on that. So like you might not even have your 17.5 liquid, but if you have it in a 401k or something like that, you can leverage that too.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing. I didn't even know about that either.
Most people don't, man. It's just crazy. Like it's all about just knowing what's out there. And to be fair, like I didn't know about that for a long time too. And it's just doing research and realizing and like going and leaning into it and like figuring it out as you go. Cause like to be fair, like I only learned it because I did it. And to be fair, I didn't know that my money stayed vested. I learned that after the fact. I just knew that like it was still going to be a good deal regardless. But I learned and I just saw like it's still in the account because remember it's a loan against it. It's not the money, it's a loan against it. So it's cool, man. There's a lot of really cool, neat ways that you can do stuff like this, you know?
Super cool. Awesome. So can you walk us through your second deal? You said you've done this a couple of times. So could we just get a little breakdown of, your second deal, how it all worked out, the numbers and et cetera, just so people can understand.
Yeah, so I could I'll run you through this one, like the house we just did. Does this work? Yeah. So this was the Fannie Mae homestyle, same thing, same operation. So first off, we're in a really tough market still in New York. And we couldn't find anything on the MLS. We placed 11 offers and we were just getting outbid like crazy and just like, it was crazy. And it was honestly really tough for me being the real estate guy and someone that's like flipped houses and bought and sold houses. And I couldn't get my own family a damn house. And I felt like pretty much a failure of a dad. We just had a newborn. We had our 1-year-old son. My wife was commuting with him 3 hours a day in the car to and back from the babysitting and to her work. And I was doing this all while I was still working from home, working in corporate. And it was beating me up that like I couldn't even find my own family a house. So, I was kind of silly in the sense of like, I'm like, I felt like I needed to go do what everybody else did, which is like go to open houses for my own house. It was like the idea that it was our forever home took me out of the investor mindset. And I fell into this trap of just doing what everyone else was doing, like doing what every other retail buyer was doing. But I was expecting a different result. And I talk to people a lot about this is like people that are first-time home buyers and they're struggling with the market and they're like, oh, I can't find anything. Everything's overpriced and too high and whatever. And they're getting mad at it. And I'm like, don't be mad at the results you didn't get from the work you didn't do. If you're just doing what everybody else is doing, you can't expect to get a good deal. Like you're doing what people that have no idea about real estate or investing or anything, they don't even know the word investing. They're doing the exact same thing. They're going to an agent, going to an open house, placing an offer that their agent tells them. That's not a strategy, right? So I knew that I was like, I know what I need to do, right? So I went back out and I was like, I need to go off market. My wife she was not on board. She was like, no, this is not your little flipping thing. This is like real. This is our house, blah, 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 blah. So she wasn't on board. Yeah. But I was like, I leaned into it anyway. And I trust myself with it. So what we did was we like wholesalers and people do, like you drive neighborhoods, look for fixer uppers. We just looked in our neighborhood and we just drove and like picked every house that we thought we could see ourselves moving into that looked like they needed a little bit of work or were dated or whatever. And we compiled a list of about 350 houses. It was a really small. We were looking for a very specific market that also made it challenging. So anyway, long story short, we built a list of about 350 houses, and I just went out and did personalized mailers, handwritten, and just said, hey, do you have any interest in selling? Me and my wife are looking to move into the neighborhood. We just had our first baby. We're looking to move in. Contact us if you're interested in a private offer. Now, I've sent direct mail before, but this crushed because it was very different than like working with like being a flipper or a wholesaler that's like just looking at it as a arm's length financial transaction. This was like, hey, we're pulling some heartstrings. Like we're a family looking to move into the neighborhood.
Yeah.
And the response rate was insane. We actually got like legitimately like a 10% response rate, which in marketing is unheard of. But
Wow.
it worked really well. And we actually had a lot of people reach out. And we had a lot of properties that we looked at that just didn't fit the bill. But turns out we found this one, and it was a little old lady who was moving out. She was moving into a retirement home. She was about to list it with an agent, but she got our letter beforehand. And I spoke to her and her kids, and like her biggest concern was like that it was old and it was dated. They were the original owners. There was a lot of stuff in the house. Like it was a nice house with good bones, but you know, it dated, needed work. And
Yeah.
the real estate agent was telling them like you're gonna have to fix things and stage it and clean it. The kids lived out of state. They didn't want to come and clean it. They didn't want to deal with it. They were telling them they had to stage it and clean it. That was going to be another tens of thousands of dollars. I told them, listen, here's the thing. We're going to buy it off you as is. Don't fix anything. Don't change anything. Because we were using this 203, the homestyle loan. I said, and they couldn't really understand. They were like, really? Like the inspection's not going to be a problem? Like they were nervous for the inspection. I'm like, no, we're buying it in as is condition. We're going to renovate it later. Don't worry about it. So because of that, they were about to list it for 750,000. I told them though, because of all these things that I'm doing, and because we're going to fix it up and do everything and clean it out for them and everything, the best I could offer them was 600. They came back and they came back at 615, and I took it hook, line, sinker. I was like, hell
Wow.
yeah, that was because it was worth sitting. It was worth that. If they listed it, they were going to get 750.
Yeah.
But the cool thing was that I brought so much to the table for them, being able to use this loan, being able to
Yeah.
purchase it as is, being able to not have them worry about cleaning it out and fixing things and everything like that, and not have to worry about dealing with an agent and commissions and realtors. It was like just direct with me. What I was sending them was exactly what I got. So came in, and the part of the process is the first thing that happens is you bring in someone called a 203K consultant or a HUD consultant. They're basically home inspectors. They're all home inspectors, most of them. They also do this as another one of their like certifications, right? So they go in and they don't only like they'll inspect the property, see what needs to be done, what's wrong with it, but then they'll also work with you to create a scope of work of what you want done to the property. Once that's done, then you put that out to contractors. And usually I like to just do it all in one shot because obviously you need access to the house. But you have that scope of work. Now you have a clear scope of work to give the contractors. Now the contractors know what they're actually bidding on. One of the things that people have issues with is like they get a bunch of contractors to bid the work, but they're not, every contractor is getting a different story of what's happening to the property. What's great about having this consultant, this report, is it's all line item down on exactly what needs to be done. So it makes the bidding process really quick and really simple for the contractor. So we did that. We found the contractor we wanted, who was, a family friend because I've been in the business, but it could be anybody, and that's licensed and insured. And then all they do is you submit that cost, whatever the contractor bid is, to the bank. The bank uses that as as the money. They're going to be like, okay, so in our case, it was the 615 plus the 250. So they added it to it, and they gave us the loan. And then what they do is then an appraiser comes in, and the appraiser also does a subject to inspection. So they look at the property, but they look at that scope of work, and they're like, oh, okay, here's what you're going to do to the property. So based on that, that's going to be what it was worth. So they do that. Once that goes through, and again, you get 110% loan to value. So the appraisal's really never going to be an issue unless you really did something wrong. So when we do that, we close on the property. The seller gets all their money. And then that 200,000 goes into an escrow account. And that escrow account works just like hard money. It's like as the contractor progresses through the project, they get released that money in draws. The contractor gets paid directly from an overnighted check. And that's the way that the process goes. And it's we just finished. It was a long project, and we bit off way more than anyone should really chew, but I practice what I preach, and like this is my world and this is what I'm good at. So we did definitely push the envelope on it, but we were all into the property. We're all into the property for about, after my down payments and everything like that. Our loan on the property is only 650,000. But we're looking at a 1.4 valuation right now. So we built damn near $500,000 of equity using the bank's money. And, this is for our own house. And it was all because of this loan.
Wow, that's amazing. So, okay, so let me I guess, ask you a little bit about the process. So
Yeah, of
when
course.
you get the house, you obviously get a scope of work, and so that becomes the after repair value of the house, which is what you're talking about, which is the 1.4, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And and so they give you you said 110% of that. So you didn't take the full loan that you could have gotten. You just took a
No,
smaller loan.
yeah,
Right.
exactly. So yeah, we only took we took what we wanted. We didn't. The whole idea is like we're only going to take what we need, right?
Right.
In our case, again, that it all came down to buying right. The fact that we were able to
Right.
buy off market, we also did a big, we added a lot of square footage.
Mm.
We do what I call equity arbitrage, which is really like find like this house was prime for a big expansion in the sense like it was a Cape style house, had a completely unused upstairs, which was basically an attic. So we were able to like pop the top. This room was like a dormer. We were able to, there was like an extension off the back. We went over that extension. So like we added square footage without like having to like pour a new foundation and do like a ton of work. So like
Yeah.
where this really shines is you can use this and like look for stuff like, yeah, sure, you can do big overhauls. But what I tell people is like, look at the equity arbitrage model is like, look at where you can easily add square footage to a property because at the end of the day, gross living area and square footage is ultimately what's going to increase the value of a house, right?
Mm.
So we saw that we could expand 800 square feet roughly cost effectively, right? Here in New York, it's like 200 a square foot to do that, which is still a lot of money.
Yeah.
However, in my area, in my neighborhood, new build, new construction, stuff like that, stuff that's renovated is selling at 450 a square foot. So now
Right.
we added 800 square foot at 200 a square foot, but we're getting 450 a square foot in valuation. That's a $250 per square foot, a 250 $300,000 valuation bump
Right.
just by finding something that's already there, using the bank's money to boost it, and getting all that on the back end.
That's amazing. Love it. Love it. Such a
Yeah.
good deal. All right. So tell us a little about how you leverage your equity. You mentioned you you build up this equity, right, in your house.
Yeah.
Now you can, basically have a line of credit or, whatever. Just tell us about that, how you can continue to leverage the equity that you build up to continue investing in real estate.
Yeah, yeah. So on that first deal that I did, right, which was the one that got me out of the gate where I started realizing it. Here's what I realized. Remember what I told you about like the cliff and like how that first deal there's nothing, it's like it's like
Yeah.
everyone's down here and then there's a couple people climbing up that cliff and people falling down the cliff and whatever and like but there's people waving at the top like it's pretty cool up here. You got to come up here. Um I thought that I was going to be able to, and I was going to leverage my equity more than I did. And I also thought that I was going to leverage it directly. What I learned was what happens is once you have that equity and a big boost of it, and you start to begin to sell yourself to lenders and banks and stuff like that, and they see your asset sheet, when they see that equity, you become a lot more bankable in general. So
Hmm.
when you go and you try to get a line of credit, yeah, home equity line of credit's great. I got that on my first house. I actually really didn't tap it though. What happened was that the lenders that I was working with, one hard money lender that I had, they just asked me for a promissory note on the remaining 20%. I said I can't come up with a 20%, but I'll give you a promissory note on the lien on my house. I'm just going to pay you 100% interest on the full amount, but you still have a promissory note on my equity.
Right.
I would have never been able to do that if I didn't have that. That was like a conversation that would have never been had. So the idea here is like whether you actually leverage it or not is kind of irrelevant. It's just the fact that you have it. And then how you leverage it, there's a multitude of different ways. I mean, again, a home equity line of credit is how I did it. The piece of advice I give just for people is like I tried to do it after I had already moved out of the house. They're going to give you the best valuations while you live there, similar to the 203K, right? So like
Mm.
it was very hard to get a home equity line on a house that I wasn't living in. But I was able to find a bank that was willing to do it. And it got me about $80,000 that I had access to. But again, I wasn't really tapping that because
Mm.
I was leveraging hard money and private money and then credit lines that I was able to get through my asset sheet and through the income that I was making and everything. They just knew I was a well qualified borrower,
Yeah.
and I was able to get business credit lines, unsecured credit lines, because they know at the end of the day, when you go and get business lines, like people think like business lines of credit are completely detached from your personal. They couldn't be further from the truth. Like it's like they want to know that you're good. So make sure you have a good personal, because the business credit is not going to solve all your problems. And even if they do lend it to you, it's going to be at better terms because you have good credit or good equity and stuff like that. So I use that. You know, I'm not a big fan of cash out refinances just because in my eyes, it's like you're permanently, especially if you're making it, going to intend on making that a rental property, or it is a rental property, you're permanently increasing the value on that, or increasing the mortgage payment on that house. Now, if you have a place to deploy that capital immediately, by all means, definitely like look into it, and you know that it's still going to cash flow. Sure, because at the end of the day, it is free money or tax-free money, right? So that you do look at it that way, that's like $100,000 you could pull out of a house and not have to pay any tax on it. That's really nice. So you have that option, but I always was a fan of home equity lines and stuff because I like a line of credit because it's only there when I need it, and I only need to pay on it when I need it, not when I don't need it. And it doesn't extend forever, right?
Yeah, that's amazing. Wow, super cool. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what you do in the 203K way. So, tell us a little bit about, you know, how many, I guess, students you have in there, any success stories that you have been able to create within the program, just so, you know, people that are listening can hear that and see if they're interested in it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, you know, like I said, this came organically, man. I had no intention on coaching anything or making videos online. Like, I never thought that this would happen the way that it has happened. But the reality of it was that I just saw in the circles that I was in the real estate investing circles, and just my friends in general, like being really curious on how I did this. Because again, nobody really talks about it. You know, I was very active on Bigger Pockets and like, you know, online Facebook groups and stuff about real estate investing. And when the 203K questions would come up, no one would really answer them. And the people that would answer them wrong. So I was kind of there like overzealously, like kind of giving all my information on how to do it. And like, I've done this myself and help friends and family do it and everything. Like, here's how to do it. And people started reaching out to me and were like, hey, like, can you help me with this? Like, you seem to know what you're doing. Like, can you help me? And then like over time it became like, do you have content? Can you make videos? Do you have a course? I don't know, like I didn't have any of this stuff. But I realized there was a need, and it was really fun for me because like this was a whole new thing I never thought would happen. But when I say it was fun, what I realized was I was helping these people, and I was seeing people that were in the exact same really let down kind of scenarios in very high cost of living, or not, you know, anywhere in the country.
Yeah.
They were just struggling and felt like home buying and investing was completely out of reach for them. And when I started helping people with it and seeing them do it successfully, the only thing I can tell you is the only thing cooler than successfully flipping a house yourself and making a 6-figure payday on a flip or a house, or, you know, a wholesale deal, or owning a rental property. The only thing better than that in terms of feeling and gratitude and fulfillment, the only thing better is helping someone else do it and watch how it changes their life, and watching them celebrate with their family and celebrate their wins and share their wins with me. That stuff never gets old, man. I mean, like, seeing someone, like we had a family, this couple, Olga and Sujit, they're down in Philadelphia. They came to me. They didn't even think they were going to buy a house ever. Like, they thought they were going to rent forever. And they found out about this, and they're like, maybe we have a shot. And they're in Philadelphia, really high cost of living market. They thought they were going to rent forever. They bought a house. For $400,000. They put $400,000 into it. They're all into it for $800,000. The property's worth over $1 million. It's a 2-family house. Their tenants paying majority of their mortgage. They just had their first kid, and they went from someone that like literally didn't even think they could buy a house to now being real estate investors, right? It's a really cool thing of like just showing people the way of like, we are all told that real estate is, you know, the key to wealth and all this stuff. And we're told this and we rehashed it, but like a lot of people really don't know what it means. And not to pick on agents much, but agents love to say it to people too, like first time home buyers, oh, this is your best investment, your biggest investment. Like, I'd argue probably not, especially if all you're telling them to do is just overpay for a property and like sink all their money into it. Because for a lot of people, their primary home is like definitely a liability, right? It's
Yeah.
repairs, it's your mortgage payment every month, it's taxes, it's all that stuff. But if you do it the right way and you can use it as an opportunity in the beginning, you could house hack it, get your tenant to pay, cover at least most of your mortgage for you, principal pay down, build a whole bunch of equity in the beginning. Your parents waited 20 years for that equity. You got it immediately in the first year. It starts to reshape what home ownership looks like for people. So yeah, that my community has just been built around letting more people know this exists. And then most importantly, like making sure people do it the right way. Because people do talk about it. It does exist out there. And to be honest, there's a lot of horror stories about it out there because again, you have the analogy again, like you have a lot of like skin doctors doing heart surgery. You have a lot of lenders and teams and people that are set up that don't have any business doing this, taking this on and sometimes really screwing over the people in it because they just have no business in doing it. However, they want to make their commission, so they just try to get through it and like they're left, you as the buyer, you're left holding the bag and you got to pick up all the pieces, right? So the 203K way is not only obviously the movement of me letting more people know that this thing exists, but more importantly, it's my coaching and my communication platform is like, how do we get the lending structured correctly? How do we get you in using the right team, the right contractor, all those people? We find deals perfect for the 203K. There's deals that are perfect for this. They're out there. They're hidden in plain sight. They're right there on the MLS right now. People don't know about it. What are perfect Goldilocks deals for these properties? How do you run the renovation? How do you make sure that you build equity on the process and actually use this and pull all the levers that the 203K loan has to offer, wrapping in closing costs, all wrapping in the first 12 months mortgage payments? How do you actually do that? There's a process to it, and it's repeatable, and it's something that goes over and over. So, my whole system is obviously built around making sure that people can do it, repeat it, and not have to be scared of it because they know how to leverage it,
Yeah, yeah. That's amazing. And how specifically do you guys help with, with the lending arm that you have? Um, you know, you you mentioned that you just mentioned I think you structure it correctly, so you kind of help people walk them through all of this and help them get their first home.
Yeah, so I'm partnered with a nationwide full mortgage bank. They do all bank, all mortgages, DSCR loans, non-QM, everything. They're a full-fledged bank. And I'm partnered with them. The reason I partnered with them is they're excellent at what they do and they know the full gamut, right? A good mortgage bank is, you don't, for this type of stuff, like for all mortgages in general, you don't go to, again, like the heart surgeon thing, right? Like Chase Bank is not a mortgage bank, but people get their mortgages from there and they usually have horrible scenarios because they don't deal in mortgages, right? This mortgage bank, they
Yeah.
deal in residential mortgages, right? And like this is all they do day in, day out. So they have the whole gamut of all the product lines, all the different things and all the different options for these buyers. So the partnership is years in the making. I've been doing this for almost a decade, but this mortgage bank relationship is only in the last like 2 years. But the reason I partnered with them is because they number one know the way that I know that things need to be done, and in turn will help them because they know that it's going to get done the right way. But also we're really flexible with the borrowers and the people that we bring in because we know that when we come in, to your point of before, like we're going to put you in the right car to get you in the destination. We're not going to, a bad lender is not, they're going to just say 203K, put me in a 203K. 203K actually might not be your best loan. But when you have a mortgage bank that has a Swiss Army knife of all different products that most importantly understands every single product deeply, then you know that you got the best bang for your buck. You got in the best car for the best destination, and you did it for the best price and the best terms, right? So with I'm partnered with them, all the people I work with, and again, even if people that I don't work with, again, to the 203kway.com/lender, if you're interested in this, it connects you with them. But you can go in and just know that you're getting pre-approved with a bank that can give you the Swiss Army knife of all these home buying products that you now can go into these different properties and know that for whatever the property throws at you, there's going to be a loan out there that you're going to be able to take this down and keep the most money in your pocket doing it.
Wow. I love it. I think this is a great way to end the podcast. So,
Yeah.
Matt, tell us where can we find you? What kind of content are you putting out? And just how can we connect with you?
Yeah, absolutely. So this all started, the 203K way all started on Instagram. And that's kind of really where I post most of my stuff. And again, it's all just mostly educational stuff. And just like, when I started it, I basically said, I want to just have all the information and give people the information I wish I knew when I did this. That's all. So that's what the 203K way Instagram is. I've also grown into YouTube. It's at Matt Porcaro on YouTube, but if you go the 203K way, really anywhere, you'll find me. I also have a private Facebook group, open to anybody, but it's a Facebook group dedicated to 203K loans and house hacking and all that stuff. If you just look up the 203K way under Facebook groups, you'll find that group there. But, as I always said, the whole point of me doing this was I never thought I would go and go this route, but I just want more people. I'm like on a branding kick. I never, I'll jump on every podcast. I'll do every speaking engagement. I'll do anything I can to get the word out, because at the end of the day, I'm just one person, but the more people that know about it and hopefully go and do it the right way, the only way that this continues to expand is if more people do it successfully like I did. And I think it's not going to expand so much from the agents and from the lenders, but from people that are doing it successfully and it's changing their life. If we have the end buyer championing it, then the lenders and the agents are going to follow, right? So like,
For sure.
if they see that there's a need for it, people are looking for it, they'll start to heed the call and they'll start to take it seriously,
Yeah, that's amazing. Awesome. So, all right, great. One last thing. What would you like someone to take away from this podcast here at the very end?
So I think the biggest thing is that we overthink everything. We learn by doing. I sat for 4 years trying to figure this out, whether it's the 203K or, wholesaling or flipping or buying homes or multifamily syndications or whatever it is, right? You already know what you need to do. Like, thinking is just making it a lot more miserable for you and taking you a lot longer. The beauty, I always say that, like, is I'm an over analyzer. I'm a freaking engineer, for God's sake. Like, my job was to over analyze shit on a daily basis. The cool thing about this and what really got me out of my own head was that the 203K, I didn't have the ability to think about it because there was nothing to think about, because there was no damn information on it. And I learned more in that 4 months of going through that process than I did in the 4 years leading up to it. So I always say thinking is the source of suffering. Your thoughts are what's true. So the thought comes up in your head that you want to do something, do it and don't think about it. Just do what your thought tells you to do, and just know that, like, the thinking part is just always going to slow you down with anything that you do. And this was a huge concept for me that I grasped with this. And we all struggle with it every day. We're all our worst enemy. But with anything that you do, don't overthink it. Just like, there's too much information. A quote that I say all the time, I don't know if it's my own quote. I don't know if I made it up. I don't know if I found it somewhere, but it's a good one nonetheless, is our society right now is more educated than ever, but less experienced than ever, right? Like, we know there's so much information. There's more information than there's ever been in the history of ever, and it's all at our fingertips, right? ChatGPT, we could tell it to build us a building in 2 minutes, right? And give us the plans for it. Information's there, but we don't have experience. It used to be like, if you want to learn something, you had to go out and do it. If you wanted to be a blacksmith, you had to work for a blacksmithing guy. You couldn't read a book on blacksmithing. There was no books on blacksmithing. If you wanted to do it, you had to work under some master blacksmith and learn over years and years and years. And that was probably the better way. Now there's just too much information. It slows people down. So stop thinking is my biggest piece of advice.
Amazing. Thank you, Matt. We really appreciate you coming on, and we hope to have you on in the future.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me.